million or even higher, simply because the fiat currencies will collapse. So what is the answer to the question of what is money? In my view, money is an abstraction of human time and energy. People like to say Bitcoin is a battery, but it's not a battery in the sense of storing electrical potential, but it's more about human time and energy. And we use money to get ahead. You can work harder and store your time and energy in this money to, say, pass on to your children or to benefit future generations. So Bitcoin is money. And with that, money is now energy and information, because Bitcoin is produced and maintained with energy. So there is a dimensionality of energy here. But at the same time, Bitcoin is also information. It is very easily stored. If you can store 12 words, then you can store Bitcoin. So this transformation is very profound, and I don't think most governments have yet fully understood this transformation. Because if money is information now, and it is decentralized and immutable, which Bitcoin is, then there is no way to control the money supply. And any attempts to do so will usually fail, such as CBDCs or things like that are in Bitcoin. And we've already seen Bhutan has revealed that they hold, I think, 13,000 Bitcoin, and they've been mining for about 4 years. So this is just one that is outed, and they kept it secret for a good amount of time. But I believe there are more countries actually right now that are already using excess energy to mine Bitcoin. So yeah, there are no low energy developed countries. So hopefully nuclear can make a comeback in Germany. So why Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the best form of money that we have, and it's outperforming the blue line, which is S&P 500, and the yellow line at the bottom, which is gold. So it's definitely important for every country to have Bitcoin, because there is a large potential for Bitcoin to grow. It's effectively an asymmetric bet. So this is my projection. I'm using 60% median annual growth for Bitcoin price appreciation. And I don't know if you can read the chart, but in 10 years' time, we should be at, now say, Bitcoin strategic reserve yet. But he has deregulated money, and they've tacitly encouraged people to conduct trade in Bitcoin. And this year, Trump has gone to the Bitcoin conference, and he made a speech saying he wants Bitcoin to be made in the US. And practically speaking, Senator Cynthia Lummis has put together a bill that would allow the US to actually create their strategic Bitcoin reserve, which is aiming to accumulate 1 million Bitcoin, or roughly 5% of the supply. So Bitcoin adoption is real. It is happening as we speak around the world, and the race is heating up, and it will only continue to heat up more. So what can countries do in terms of strategies? There's 3 primary strategies. One is simply buy Bitcoin, put it into the treasury. The second is to issue a Bitcoin bond or use sovereign debt to buy Bitcoin. So effectively, MicroStrategy playbook for nation states. And the third thing is to pass Bitcoin-friendly laws that can make Bitcoin usable.
That conservative path, which is very much lower from the value. What are the differences in your assumptions or in your model? Would be interesting for me.
Well, my model is actually very simple. It's just 60% median growth every year. And if you go back 5 to 10 years, roughly you see the same trajectory. But one thing that most models don't account for is that there will be a point at which people just stop using fiat currencies. So we can project out 10 years, 20 years, but the reality is we're probably not going to go to 20 million a coin. And eventually, at some point, we'll just use Bitcoin as the unit of account. So with money, you have 3 parts of paths to evolution: store of value, unit of account, medium of exchange. So unit of account right now, it's still the dollar. Even countries that don't use the dollar, their currencies are pseudo-pegged to the dollar or directly pegged to the dollar. But eventually we'll just price things in Satoshis, and just held it. That is already good enough, and that could eliminate most of their debt. At least that was the idea for El Salvador.
Answer question?
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I have a slightly different perception maybe of hyper-Bitcoinization. And I want to ask you how the idea of a probably fractional reserve of Bitcoin and states in hands of governments and states that they would use to maybe fund or peg another kind of fiat currency towards their Bitcoin reserves. How does it match to your image of a hyper-Bitcoinized world? Because it doesn't match with mine.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it is possible to. It's a good question. I'm not sure if there is a step. I think most countries that are going to look towards Bitcoin as a new form of money are probably doing it out of necessity. And the more developed countries are simply just going to follow. And I think right now, at least what it seems like, is the US election is going to have an outsized effect on this, because most countries do follow the US. But there's just not a lot of strong leadership to make a stand and say, you know, we're going to adopt Bitcoin, just because they want to see someone else do it first. So I think Trump is going to win, and I think he is going to do something, and I think everyone will follow after that. So it's not so much a strategic plan and action. It's more about following on, or trying to fast follow. But fast follow doesn't really work that well, at least in terms of Bitcoin, because there's just a finite supply. In a fiat world where you can print.
Arkely wars already Ukraine to out in the Matisse. Let's all hope that this war will do the wars will be contained as soon as possible. But what but the crazies get even crazier, and we get into a full-blown war. From the internet, they talk about what implications would that first on the price of Bitcoin? And the actual political question then is, well, what is the political risk involved if such a war actually happens? Which leads me to my second question. What implications do you think does Bitcoin have on war and peace in general? In other words, could Bitcoin be the peace currency?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first, and then you have to re-ask the first one, because I'm jet lagged. Not. So they'd rather the people have a BRICS currency, but maybe the people in charge want the Bitcoin. And there was a third question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, first I want to say that Libya, it's not a former CFA country, French colony.
Right, they wanted to go on a gold standard.
Yeah, that's why. But I talk about Burkina Faso, Niger, these countries. And the last question was, what you think is the next country in that Bitcoin is intended?
I'm not sure. For Jan 3, we're working on a few, but legal tender is not in the cards for any of the ones that we're engaged with yet. And I don't think we need to press for legal tender, as long as they open the door to Bitcoin in some way. It just takes time. There is no pressing need for Bitcoin right now. People are just happy to have it and being able to accept it. Most people that accept Bitcoin are actually converting to dollars too. So it really has more to do with education than anything else, to make the people aware that they should have Bitcoin.
May I add to this question so when you say that education is one of the most important parts of people adopting a currency in your country, shouldn't your consulting agency focus on teaching the government how to implement an education program on Bitcoin for their citizens, instead of focusing on
free Bitcoin, which is free flowing from people that have it in self-custody, and Bitcoin that's held within institutions that never leaves those institutions?
Samson for interesting. Sorry to understand correctly, we are traveling a lot around the world talking to governments. And you mentioned a couple that are now showing interest in Bitcoin. We probably talk to many more that actually don't buy it, that don't take the bait. Do you see any similarities in the governments that now show interest in Bitcoin. For example, with as a currency, there must be something that is better than a nation state in that context that you could do.
Maybe, but the first question was about the Russians being kicked off of the SWIFT system and their assets seized. You would think that would spark more interest in Bitcoin, but I haven't seen it. And I think it just has to do with people's focus. Like, they're largely distracted by other things. But if they were paying attention, they'd be buying Bitcoin, right? But that's not the case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty cool what you are doing, orange pilling nation states, trying to do. How do you think it could be more efficient to just orange the completist instead? Like if you will go to Google, Facebook,
like it's about this.
First mover advantage that you say, Bloody adopted already, it has its advantages and, it covers everything you would want from a cryptocurrency.
You can't really invent it again because like others have tried to do a fair launch. But once digital scarcity is discovered, then or invented, you can't really do it again, right? Like I think, what was that one? Mimblewimble or something. They had some good ideas and they tried to do a fair launch, but VCs came in because everyone's aware and watching now, so you can't really do it again. You can't have organic growth of a crypto asset.
All right, thanks.
Any more questions? Yeah, there.
Can you please explain why the World Bank or maybe even the International Monetary Fund will against Bitcoin? What's going behind the scenes? As far as I remember, I think you